Motorola's Radio Management. The Introduction. Radio management allows you to manage and program multiple radios at a time. Radio code plugs can now be stored on a central database server. Central database storage allows for remote configuration of code plug data and remote programming of radios. A single code plug can be used as a template, which can be shared across multiple radios. Template edits may then be easily applied to all affected radios. Many individual radio identity settings can be reviewed or edited directly without having to reopen a code plug, thus allowing for quick and easy access to radio parameters. Changes to a template or to an individual radio's parameters can then be easily scheduled as a programming job. Programming jobs may be scheduled through an over-the-air connection or through a USB connection when radios are physically attached. With a USB connection, gang programming and gang flashing allow for simultaneous programming and software upgrading of up to 16 radios. Management. The four major components. The four major components of a radio management system, also known as RM, include the RM server, the RM client, the RM device programmer, and the RM job processor. In this order, let's now take a more detailed look at each one of these RM components. To begin with, the radio management server is ultimately the central data storage component and the automated job manager component of your radio management system. More specifically, the RM server stores all code plug archives, all individual radio identity settings, and all template settings, as well as all scheduled job and job history information. Also be aware that the RM server continually manages the distribution and tracking of all radio programming jobs, even when the system is unattended. And do note that the RM server utility is always available when needing to view or manage certain server behaviors and database-related tasks. Utility features include RM server status, server settings, backup the server database, restore the server database, move the server database, and computer authorization for a multi-computer deployment. The radio management client, which is also known as the RM client, is the second RM component in this example. The RM client is easily accessed from the RM button. Within your radio management system, the RM client is the primary user interface for viewing, editing, and defining your radio management data. RM client fleet mapping capabilities include features such as grouping and sorting of data by any desired column. In this radio view, the RM client allows for viewing and editing of radio IDs. From the job view, the RM client allows for viewing the job status of all scheduled jobs. And from the radio details view, you may view the job history of any specified radio. Additionally, within the RM client, a single radio's code plug is converted to a programming template, which can be then selected and shared by multiple radios. Do also note that all radio management programming jobs are created and defined in the RM client. The third radio management component is the device programmer. Programming jobs that are defined in the RM client are then stored and waiting in the RM server and are ultimately performed by the device programmer. Through either an over-the-air connection or a USB connection, once a radio's presence has occurred in the device programmer, waiting jobs may then be performed. Note that a device programmer can continually perform read and write jobs even when the computer is unattended or when a user is not logged on. Also, be aware that the device monitor, which is accessed from the Start menu, allows you to define preference settings for the device programmer and allows you to view the current job operations occurring within the device programmer. And always remember that it is not required to have the device monitor running in order for jobs to be performed by the device programmer. The fourth and final radio management component in this example is the job processor. The job processor validates all data supplied to and received from the RM server. For write jobs, the job processor validates and combines template information with radio identity information to create a code plug, which can then be written to the radio. For read jobs, the job processor validates and separates the code plug data. This data separation creates template information and radio identity information, which is then stored in the RM server. Motorola's radio management options. To meet your operational needs, a radio management system can be deployed in a variety of configurations. For instance, the all-in-one deployment is the most basic deployment configuration. In this configuration, all 4 RM components are installed on a single computer. This configuration is useful in scenarios where all radio programming is accomplished locally. Therefore, this configuration is ideal when there is no need for remote user access or remote radio access. With this configuration, there are no network firewalls or routers to consider. Alternatively, the power and flexibility of an RM system becomes very apparent in a distributive deployment, where the 4 radio management components may be installed on multiple computers in different locations. For instance, RM allows for multiple RM clients, enabling remote programming from multiple locations. And the RM allows for multiple device programmers, enabling programming from different locations, convenient to the physical location of your radios. Note that in a distributed deployment, installed components must have clear network connectivity to the server. This may require network configuration changes to allow network connectivity through routers and firewalls. Adding and registering application licenses. Radio management requires that each managed radio must have a corresponding radio management application license, which is ultimately stored in your RM server. From the Radio Management's RM client screen, this Register Application Licenses feature is accessed from the Action menu's Manage Licenses selection. And now select Register Application Licenses. Notice that your RM server installs with 10 application licenses. These 10 free licenses are immediately available for your use. Additional application licenses can then be added into your RM server by placing an order with Motorola Solutions. Once you have received your order confirmation email from Motorola Solutions containing your entitlement ID, continue from the application license screen by being sure that you still have an internet connection, and then entering your entitlement ID. Now click the Query button to access Motorola's licensing server. Once the online transaction is complete, verify that the correct purchased number of licenses is available for transfer to the RM server. You can transfer any portion of the available licenses to the current RM server by entering the number of licenses in the Enter Quantity column, and then clicking the Register button to confirm your quantity decision. Do be aware that you may easily verify that the desired number of radio licenses has been transferred to the RM server from the License Summary's Capacity field. You are now ready to add new radios to Radio Management, one for each unused license. Do also note that from the RM Client Settings window, which is accessed from the Actions menu's Settings selection, the Applications Licenses, Recover options may be found. For more information on these features, please refer to the Radio Management's online help system by pressing the F1 key. Radio Management, adding Moto Turbo radios to your RM system. With your application licenses purchased from Motorola Solutions and added to your Radio Management server, which is thoroughly covered in Segment 4 of this lesson, you are now ready to add the actual radios to your radio management system. The following method is recommended when deploying large numbers of new radios at the same time, or large numbers of existing radios at the same time, into your RM system. Prior to the actual deployment of radios into the RM system, prepare by considering the following 4 elements. For new radios, collect serial numbers for each radio being added. Also, for new radios, determine the radio ID for each radio. For new radios and existing radios, determine which RM group is the most appropriate for the radios being added. And finally, for existing radios, determine the desired CPS archive file for each radio. And now, when adding new radios from outside of the RM system, using your favorite spreadsheet program, add each radio's serial number to a spreadsheet.csv file. Start by opening the Motorola-provided default.csv file, which is conveniently located in the CPS installation folder. For instance, once this file is open in your spreadsheet program, add all serial numbers to the serial number column. Note that because all other radio data is overwritten when reading radio code plugs into your RM system, other than comments, Do not enter any other radio data into this spreadsheet. With the appropriate data entered, save this file by using the Save As command, which allows you to rename the file using an appropriate name, such as hotelbanquets.csv. In this deployment, all radios will be added to the same RM group. Therefore, from the RM client screen, let's create a new group with the name Banquets. Now, being sure that the new group is selected, from the Actions menu, select Import, CSV, then select the hotelbanquets.csv file to import the desired radios. All new radios included in the CSV file are now stored in your RM server, and they are contained within your Banquets group. Moving on to template assignments, be aware that Radio Management Define templates, or imported RM templates, can be reused for multiple radios, or possibly even just one template for all of your new radios. Note that the reuse of templates is only possible for radios with matching model numbers and matching features. Right-clicking on any radio and then selecting to Edit a Template allows you to build a template within your RM system. However, if you have an existing radio fleet, from the RM client's Actions menu, select Manage, and then select Template to launch the Templates window. From this window, one of your existing radio archives can be easily imported into the RM system, and then easily used as a programming template. All needed data is then extracted from this archive file to create the Hotel Banquets template. With all new radios requiring this template, continue by first selecting the radios. Selecting is accomplished by using the standard Windows Select keys. First, hold down the Shift key, and then click to select the appropriate radios. Now, right-click on the highlighted radios, and then choose Select Template, which retrieves the Select Template window, then click the needed template. Click the OK button to assign the Hotel Banquets template to all selected radios. With the new template assigned, continue by adding the required non-template radio-specific information to each new radio. Begin with the radio alias, which allows you to define a radio user recognizable name for each radio. When defined, for many reasons, this alias is a radio user benefit. When the radio IP is defined, this IP can then be used by a PC containing the device programmer to communicate with the radio. When all radios in your fleet have unique radio IP addresses, multiple radios can be programmed by the same device programmer PC at the same time, and with no conflict. You must also define the non-template radio-specific radio ID that uniquely identifies each radio. At this point in the deployment process, your new radios now have a chosen template, and the necessary device-specific information has also been defined. Therefore, your new radios are now ready to be programmed. Once again, by using the standard Windows Select keys, continue by holding down the Shift key and clicking to select all radios to be programmed. And then, click the Schedule Job button to retrieve the Schedule Job window. In order to program these radios, Write is the needed job type, and USB is the needed connection method. And for tracking purposes, enter an appropriate job name. Also note that leaving the start date blank allows these programming jobs to start immediately. And leaving the end date blank ensures that these jobs do not expire. To initiate the job, click the OK button. Once a job is scheduled, in the RM client, the job status is Waiting for Device Programmer. This indicates that the job is waiting in the RM server for the presence of target radios to be detected by the device programmer. For a USB-defined job, radios may only be connected to device programmers with a connection method setting of wired. As each programming job is complete, the device monitor shows a status of successful, indicating that radios can now be disconnected. Continue connecting radios until all radios are successfully programmed. Once your radio fleet has been programmed, in the RM client window, the job status is updated to Completed, indicating that these radios are now ready to be deployed to the appropriate radio users.